I don't do a lot of medium-sized dreams. I do gigantic, outlandish dreams, and then I try and humble myself from there and say, okay, what's really the first step in this dream? How can you realize it in the most humble way possible? Which is really where, it's like you want a pizzeria, but you have a garden apartment.
Tony, the return. Welcome back. I missed you.
Missed you, Victor. How you been?
I've been good. Well, we've both been very busy.
Yes, lots happened.
I've been loving your journey. You've kind of carved a niche within the comedian space.
Yeah, I really just started organically in that I'm a huge fan of the art form, right? We'll have to see on the next update if I've actually scratched the itch and gotten up for 5 minutes of an open mic or even 60 seconds of an open mic.
That's an interest of yours.
Oh yeah, I'd love to at least say I've done it once.
Hell yeah.
It seems like too much fun to not at least give it a shot, but I'm also the type of personality where I don't like to do anything half-assed or go half into anything. So it's like, do I really have the time, patience, and energy to devote to something like that? I'm not sure I do, but at the same time, I'm like, is that just an excuse not to give it a shot one time?
Well,
right.
Before we start recording, the picture behind you, Jordan, he is the radio host for 1019 The Mix.
Okay.
But he also runs the social for Second City.
Okay, awesome.
And he just finished a course and things like that. And I'm sure you know other people that have finished the courses. I don't know. One day you'll probably make the time to do it.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know too many people on the improv side of things here in Chicago, but plenty on the stand-up. But super impressed by anybody who can put themselves out there.
We recently saw Amy Poehler and Tina Fey when they came to town.
I was hoping to make pizza for that show. It didn't work out, but that's pretty badass.
So to build context, because it's been 3 years since you've been on, to build context for our listeners, I'll include a link for our first episode. But the last time, unfortunately, it's just so much good food, not just good pizza in the city. It's been a while since I've had your specific pizza. Sure. The last time I had it, it was probably twice with my current fiance. The last one was probably the German style one with the pretzel crust.
Oh wow, that was a fun one. Yeah, Oktoberfest. When I was doing the special credit or the extra credits, I should say. Yeah.
Classes in session.
Yeah. Right. We were going hard with the motif, the scholastic motif in those days, but.
And then before that, it was our first date.
Oh, incredible.
So we're a pandemic.
And now you're about to get married.
And now we're about to get married. So we're a pandemic success story. We met off Hinge.
Sounds like we might be booking a late night snack at your wedding or something.
That'd be amazing. We decided to do pizza and beer it looked like an alley behind Wrigley Field. And Incredible. That's when you were still at the sports bar in Wrigley.
Full Shilling, yes.
Full Shilling.
Yeah.
And I think I visited you twice there, and you made it work. It was just a kind of a small space, but you made it small kitchen space.
Yes.
And the doorman didn't even know, there's pizza in here? I'm like, I'm here for the pizza. He's like, pizza?
You must have come pretty early on.
It was early. I was just riding the coattails of Professor Pizza at the time.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
And
we were lucky to have that space. It was humble. It was in no way designed for pizza, but it allowed us to get our product out there at a time where we really needed to, and in a way that we didn't otherwise have available to us. So
and that was after Hermosa?
Yeah, Hermosa was another opportunity we were super grateful for. That one was a little bit more short-lived, and of course it started in my apartment at the time. But spent a little time at Hermosa, almost 2 years at Full Shilling.
The ending of the first episode was you were manifesting a food stall at Wells Street.
Okay. Yeah. That didn't end up happening.
Yeah,
That didn't
yeah.
end up happening. Well, Street Market no longer exists, unfortunately. And I think a lot of food halls have taken a hit. I think a lot of ghost kitchens have taken a hit, too. I think there's been a general return to classic restaurants, which I'm in no way upset about. You know, I'm now in the West Loop at 406 North Sangamon in collaboration with Atomic Hospitality Group. The rooftop is called Tetto. The food is all Professor Pizza. And it's just a really great rooftop to have pizza and cocktails at, you know, and you know, soak in some summertime shy. So we're excited to be there, but yeah, it's definitely been a journey from my former apartment and Hermosa and full Shilling and a ghost kitchen and Humboldt Park to where we are now.
Is it a blur?
I'm able to look back and appreciate every step. You know, when you look to the future, sometimes you're like, geez, I wish I was there now. But I try and look in the rearview mirror and say, hey, there's so many times where you wish you could be exactly where you are right now. So be thankful for where you are right now. You know, I talk about this rooftop, and when it's closed at the end of the night, or I'm there late doing some prep or some R&D or whatever, I scan my key fob and walk out there and just take a look at the city, and it's pretty incredible to say that, like, that's my home base right now. So I try not to take anything for granted, for sure.
Yeah. So quickly summarize what it was like, just so if people don't end up listening to the first episode, what was it like where the seed was planted to start making pizzas in your apartment?
This was me just really trying to stay active
because
with my skill set.
You were consulting with Dobros
I wouldn't
on
even
and
say,
off, right?
I was working there at that time still. I was on my way out in an effort to get ready to open up that proposed project with Jimmy Banos Jr. in Wells Street Market. So I was kind of on my way out at that point, I would say, but still to this day I have a good relationship with the people over at Dobros and get a chance to do some private events for their owners from time to time. But yeah, I was focused on doing kind of my own thing at that point, and when things seemed increasingly unsure at Wells Street Market, it was like, okay, do you sit back and just take in Netflix and The Sopranos and, you know, Orange is the New Black,
which is the easy
Tiger
way out,
King or whatever we were watching at that time, or you know, you're supposedly this world pizza champion. You should be making pizza or something on a regular basis and utilizing your skill set, right? So I started making a focaccia because it seemed unrealistic for me to be bringing in cheese, sauce, and toppings with my residential refrigerator. I was like, maybe I can fit some dough in there, do some cool bread projects like everybody else during the pandemic, and just have fun with that. And sure enough, like, I did 1 week of focaccia for a chef friend of mine. He purchased it. I was like, name your own price, whatever you think is fair, whatever you think it's worth, whatever. And I caught the bug to do at least something of my own at home, right? So made the transition from focaccia to actual pizzas. I think I started off with grandma style, which I'm really kind of known for popularizing.
I was gonna say,
here
like,
in the city.
even to this day, like, is that what you're known for?
We sell a bunch of grandma styles still to this day.
Cool.
We've expanded into other styles as well. On the rooftop, you'll see us doing our New York, our cracker thin, and our grandma style. We're still producing the Detroits for carry out and delivery, and we'll get back to the Sicilians in time, right? But we have fun with all different styles for sure.
Damn.
But yeah.
And then talk about, because Ethan's coming on soon.
Okay.
Ethan from Hermosa.
Yeah.
We recently got to dine
guy.
at Family Meal at his place not too long ago, and he was part of a documentary, and he was a subject of a documentary. So. Yeah.
Not surprising. He's a super inspiring guy, for sure.
Good person, good human being.
Totally.
Share what it's like was that the first collab then? Like, as far as renting commercial kitchen space?
In that sense, I suppose it was. You know, he was super welcoming at a time where I was trying to expand the business, and I was terrified of getting in trouble with the health department for having produced all this product out of my apartment at the
Plus,
time.
your
so.
apartment's probably smelling like pizza at this point.
It wasn't even enough power to run the oven. So I had a commercial oven in my very residential apartment.
Gotcha.
And luckily it was summer, so I was able to open up the doors, all the windows, turn off all the lights, and just try and keep the airflow going and try and keep all the electricity usage to this oven that I had rigged to work
mind you, listeners,
in the house. It's kind of wild.
Tony's a dad, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So juggling a lot in those days, but I'm so glad I had that stage of the business and of the journey, because it just gives me greater appreciation for, where I am now.
Yeah.
It adds to the story.
It was my first time at Hermosa seeing you with a team.
Yeah.
As far as like receiving orders, helping deliver orders.
That team really did start in my apartment.
Oh,
you could
okay,
see it on
okay.
display, but I had people helping me even in those days.
Okay.
Some of them still helping me now. Some of them gone, on to do other things. But it's important that I say, like, even in the early days of this, I always had people in my corner making this a reality with me.
Where did you learn to not burn bridges?
I think that's a daily pursuit, right? And I look back at a lot of the relationships, both personal and professional, in my life, and I'm lucky to say, like, I'm still on good to great terms with most people, okay with a few, and not so good with even fewer. But it's basic golden rule stuff. You try and treat people the way that you'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
When you move on from one phase of your life to the next, you make sure you do so with the highest level of integrity possible. And just be transparent with people and your own limitations, right? I think when you're transparent and humble, people are a lot more forgiving than when you come into the room with an ego. So I think we all have egos for sure. I try and check mine at the door to the best of my ability, but I can fall victim to that like anybody else. And I think an ego can get in the way of a lot of great blessings in life, including just the blessing of not burning bridges, right? So that's kind of my ethos with that.
When you feel wronged, it's easy to just kind of lash out and and fight back, or just hold grudges.
Yeah. I'm in a situation right now where I've been given the biggest opportunity I've ever been given in my career by being on this rooftop in the West Loop, but at the same time, I juggled that with the reality of having, in certain ways, in certain respects, less control of my brand than I've ever had before, because I'm working collaboratively with this hospitality group in a space that they own and that they operate, and that they want to build to be something great for years to come, even with the potential of me potentially moving on, right?
Yeah.
And doing my own thing. So
you're both taking a leap of faith on each other.
We're both taking a leap of faith on each other, and to be fair, I think they're probably taking a bigger leap of faith on me, in that I'm just a way smaller entity. The ability for me to fail is a lot greater than the chance of them failing. But it's, as you said, we're taking a chance on one another and trying to make magic happen, at the center of that compromise every single day. So it's a challenge, and it challenges my ego every single day, and it gives me respect for the journey of, like, opening up a brick and mortar restaurant and recognizing that there are going to be things beyond your control on a daily basis, on a moment by moment basis. You have to run with the punches, and it's not easy, but I think I'm really proud of what we're building over there.
What were some takeaways from working with Ethan? Because I don't know why you left, but I know they were broken into during the pandemic.
Yeah, so I've got nothing but love for Ethan and his family. I don't know that they were broken into, but they certainly
Were the windows?
Yeah, they caught a bullet.
That's what it was. Okay.
This was in the height of
the riots.
The riots. The George Floyd tragedy had just taken place. There was a lot of unrest, really throughout the entire country, and the neighborhood of Hermosa was a perfect microcosm of what was going on throughout the country at that time. And I think, for his very traditional family, they were already taking a risk on an outsider coming in, doing his own thing, and kind of rocking the boat a little in the most respectful way I knew how to do, right? And then, their business was rocked by the fact that they caught that bullet to the window, and luckily there were 2 panes of glass, and it went through the first and not the second, and nobody was hurt. But
people were in there when it happened?
The trauma associated with that is real. I don't know. I don't know if people were in there when it happened or not.
Wow.
But either way, that was their family business, and they just kind of wanted to take a moment to go back to what they knew the best, and so I kept looking, but they gave me a good couple weeks there, and at a time where everything was service by service. Are we going to have somewhere to produce out of? Are we going to be able to pick up ingredients by the grace of so and so's favor? I was thankful for the time I had there, and for the friendship that grew from that, because most people don't know, Ethan and I didn't really know each other before.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
I put something on Facebook. We were already very casually Facebook friends, and he reached out to me out of the goodness of, his heart as, an almost complete stranger to me at that time, and said, here's some home and harbor, at least for as long as I can give you, and never really charged me any rent, and months and months later, if not a year later, ended up reimbursing me for an electrical outlet I had installed there to operate my oven, that he was under no obligation to do whatsoever. Wow. But is just such a genuine dude, and I'll always be thankful for that favor. A lot of people did pick up pizza from me in those weeks that I was there, and remember just that stop on my overall journey. So very appreciative to Ethan and his whole family.
Yeah, well, lots of blessings coming his way right now.
Incredible chef.
Yeah.
Incredible chef.
So then going on to full Shilling, I think my turnoff was parking was tough.
Yeah, that whole neighbor, and unfortunately I'm in another neighborhood right now where parking's super tough, right?
But hopefully people are coming to stay and eat your pizza too right now.
Exactly.
Right? That's the whole point.
Exactly. So it's maybe worth it. Maybe some ride share is involved, but yeah, another place where through the generosity of Alex Zupanzik, who's the founder of Last Call Tavern Group, I was able to get into a space that maybe is not the first thing you think of when you think of pizza or pizzeria, but we turned it into somewhat of a destination over some of those middle to end months of the pandemic, and really made the most of it. And I helped him to the best of my ability install a bar menu that would allow his patrons to kind of drink and imbibe and eat there at that time when he didn't really have another option. And through the grace of his generosity, I was able to run my pop-up, which was on Talk in those days. And I don't think either of us made a whole lot of money off the scenario, but it continued to grow
the brand
and the lore of Professor Pizza, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. But how long can you keep that up? I mean, you got bills to pay,
right?
You have a kid to feed, right?
Right. And so I was there for probably just shy of 2 years, and
it's a long time.
In that time, I brought my cousin on. And
did they move here from out of Chicago, or they were in Chicago?
No, he still works remotely from Wisconsin, from Milwaukee and
nice.
Powers Lake area. But he's kind of the mastermind behind my social media outreach, any of our marketing efforts. We've been getting requests for last couple of years about merch. We're closer than ever on that front. Anytime I'm booking a party or a private event or a part of a festival or what have you, he's very integral in the organization of all those efforts. So very lucky to have him kind of step on board near the end of my tenure or time at Full Shilling.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got with our current partner, Grant Johnson, who's got a background in restaurant equipment sales and commercial kitchen architecture and design. And he's somebody that I actually have known directly and indirectly throughout the course of my entire life. He's about 10 years older than me, went to the same high school I went to. Stevenson High School. His mother, Mrs. Johnson, was my art teacher in grade school, grew up in the same neighborhood as me, hanging out with kids his age that lived in my cul-de-sac as I was growing up. So we were kind of always in and around one another. I had a stint of, probably like 5 to 8 years growing up where I was a DJ, mobile DJ, bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, corporate events, birthday parties, that sort of thing. And I DJ'd a fellow neighbor of ours' wedding, and he was at that. So there was just like different little things throughout life where we kind of check in one another. Fast forward to the Dobros days where I'm the manager there, and we're trying to get into some new equipment, a pizza make station, and call up an equipment company, and he answers the call and comes and sells us that equipment. And it was in those days where he said, like, hey, maybe it'll be Dobros that does something with you, maybe it'll be somebody else that does something with you, but like one day maybe it'll be me who does something with you. But I think you need to be given this opportunity to do something really in your own vision, and put your own touch on pizza, because clearly you have a passion for it. And fast forward even further, I'm at Full Shilling, but I'm trying to look for that next opportunity to kind of grow. And my buddy, wildly talented chef in the city here, Chris Thompson, is having his friends and family opening night for Lardone and what will become Lardone, Union, and Meadowlark at Californian Armitage. And I'm at that friends and family night, and Grant and I run into one another, and he says, hey, if you're still willing to have that conversation about investment, I'm more ready to have that conversation than ever before. And we sit down, we have it, and a couple weeks or months later, we eventually get into the Ghost Kitchen in Humboldt Park that I spent a year at doing carry-out and delivery and growing the brand further from there. And he's helped me make the transition from there into where we are right now in the West Loop. So definitely wouldn't be where I am today without his help as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioning DJs. So I do wedding photography outside of here.
Yeah.
And my first Jewish wedding that I did, first of all, amazed by a ketubah. I want a secular ketubah at my wedding.
Yeah.
It was beautiful to have like group vows and like just everyone looking out for you.
Totally.
But I remember the groomsmen talking about pizza in the city, and your name came up.
Oh, fantastic. Trying to get my claws in there any way I can.
So yeah, let's take it to the
started off for kosher options, by the way, guys. Yeah. Kosher and halal meats coming.
Now, speaking of that, like, what's the price difference between kosher and non-kosher?
We're not even there yet to where I can comfortably say we've started accepting samples from different companies and producers, and we're kind of in that R&D stage where we're playing around with different beef bacons and
but there's a demand for it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's
for
cool.
Sure. For health reasons, for religious reasons, what have you. But it's also pizza just ends up skewing so pork heavy anyways. It's nice to round out those meat options with different proteins and just get creative with it. So we welcome it for sure.
I can't wait. What was the experience like at the Humboldt Park? Because I would pass it. My dog food place, for dog's sake, is in that area.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I think whenever something like that's in the rearview mirror for me, my gut reaction is to always be like, good riddance. I'm so glad to be like past that.
Okay.
But like, then I kind of slow myself down and say like, okay, what were the positives of it? I'll start with the neighborhood. Humboldt Park embraced me in a very real way. For the longest time, I felt like, I don't make the cheapest pizza in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make necessarily the most expensive one either, but I recognize that, it's not necessarily an everyday expenditure. You're kind of splurging a little when you get Professor Pizza, and I appreciate it anytime somebody does. And for that reason, I was just like, it must be that my customers are coming from Lincoln Park and the Gold Coast and Old Town and more affluent, neighborhoods. And the reality is like I had people within walking distance of me that were willing to support me in a very real way, and were sad to see me go when we moved away from the neighborhood. And so I take it very seriously how many people did support me from that neighborhood, and if there's ever an opportunity for us to be back there, we'll certainly consider it heavily. But it's another scenario where there's limitations, right? So when you have a location that people come to, you want it to be abundantly obvious that you are there. And I think more people saw the Little Caesar sign on the outside of that building than necessarily saw that Professor Pizza was there. It wasn't until maybe halfway into our time there that we actually even got any sort of signage on the outside.
I remember that. Like, it took a while, and then I saw Three Little Pigs on the outside too.
Yeah, as soon as their sign got spray painted up there, ours did too.
Yeah.
Or at least shortly after, and that helped. But it was an industrial stretch of Humboldt Park. It wasn't very neighborhoody.
Right.
So it's not like you were going to
Walkable.
happen upon, this location. You kind of really needed to know it was there. We were always hustling pizzas to delivery drivers, to customers, and so that made things a little bit challenging.
As far as eating into your profits.
It certainly would eat into our profits, and it's something we still have to deal with. I mean, we were reconsidering the option of bringing on our own drivers, but that's a big leap for any pizzeria to make, or really any restaurant to make.
As far as paying them by the hour because they're in-house now?
Paying them by the hour, potentially having a vehicle of your own or insuring theirs, factoring in gas, insuring them as a commercial driver, for their uniforms. Are you wrapping a car? Are you investing in car toppers, different forms of advertisement in that sense? So it's a lot to take on.
What's your metric? What's your threshold for choosing to bring it in-house?
So I think we're looking at a facility beyond where we are right now that would really put carry out and delivery into focus in a way that we've never really had the opportunity to before. What I mean by that is just like from a production standpoint, there would be really next to zero limitations in this facility we're looking at.
Would it be a separate ghost kitchen then?
So we're weighing all sorts of options.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do we add this onto what we're already doing?
Yeah.
Do we do this instead of what we're already doing? At the end of the day, everything I do is driven by passion, but like the entertainment business or the music business or the pizza business, you have to remember that business component to it at the end of the day. And sometimes whatever is driving the profit is kind of where your business is going next. And for the longest time, I was like, oh, man, I just can't wait to have my own brick and mortar. And I think that's still going to be a part of my story. And we're closer to that reality with the rooftop that we have right now till October than we ever have before. But I'm realizing, geez, it seems like we make a lot of money off of carry out and delivery. Or,
Interesting.
geez, this frozen thing that we're getting into with Maplewood Brewery seems to really have
Congrats
some legs
on that.
to it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. They've really been partners in our success.
Now, with that leap of faith, it's like trusting them to cook your pies too, right?
Yeah, it is. But we did it the right way.
Okay.
We're not growing at such an exponential rate with that where it's getting beyond us. I came in there and I trained them how to do it, right? We set them up with the garnish for those pies. They've been trained on what the ingredients are, how to express that to customers, how to properly cut a tavern pie, how to serve it, what to look for in an electric deck oven setting, right? So,
and the main thing is asking for help if they need help.
Yeah,
Right?
I've had customers that have enjoyed it at Maplewood. I've had customers that have enjoyed it on the rooftop or ordered it for carryout and delivery, and I've been very pleased to hear that it's a pretty consistent experience across the board. So,
and you had a collab, was it a lager or Pilsner, like with
Pilsner, Professor Pilsner? Yeah, which apparently they're going to be doing another run of, hopefully in August. So stay tuned for that. But hopefully that's the first of many collabs to come with them as well as others. We're just excited to be working with brands and people here in Chicago that we really believe in, and who are lucky to say they really believe in us.
And throughout this entire time of being in Humboldt, and now even the rooftop, you've been planting the seeds with comedians and working private events.
Yeah.
And if I were to guess, has that been through word of mouth? I know they would occasionally share on their socials of like, you need Professor Pizza at your next show.
Yeah, incredibly humbled anytime that happens.
Would you say the first one was JB or?
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
So it's interesting because it didn't even necessarily start with comics. I had a random opportunity while I was still at Dobro's, and the JB thing happened while I was still at Dobro's too. But to make pizza in the VIP area for Lyrical Lemonade Summer Smash Music Festival. And that was my first taste of making pizza for any celebrity at all. And had the chance to make pizza for Chance the Rapper and Lil Yachty and a handful of people. And it wasn't even something on my radar as something I could be doing, right? Or it's like, maybe one day you'll make some food for somebody who's famous, but geez, that's got to come so far down the road. And I think, I just adopted this mentality that like, no one's knocking down your door, like asking you to be at the next coolest event or can you make pizza for me or whatever. But like, at the same time, there's nothing stopping you from knocking down their door, right? And the Lyrical Lemonade thing fell in my lap, but even when I was there, I was hustling my way to those artists. No one was like, let me bring up Chance the Rapper to you. You could have just stayed in your tent the entire time. Like, no, I'm going to bend some rules here, or I'm really going to not overly take advantage, but like I was definitely there at a grave discount even in those days. So I was like, okay, if I'm at best breaking even here, how do I make the most of this? And I was in walking distance of some of the biggest names in hip hop music at the time, and one of the biggest directors to this day in hip hop music videos. And I took advantage of the opportunity, and I introduced myself, and I offered them pizza. And pizza is one of those, international currencies that everybody, will kind of
rejoice over.
Yeah, I don't know a better way to put it, really, but certainly invite you in with open arms, right? So I kind of banked that in my head, and then I remember just scrolling through Instagram. I think it was at Dobro's, and sorry to Dobro's, but it was a marketing moment, right? And I saw JB Smoove sitting in a vintage car with Larry David promoting his tour dates.
Oh, snap.
And he said something about Texas being like, you better have that vegan barbecue ready for me down there. Like, vegan barbecue? Are you kidding me, buddy? But once again, stuck with me. And one of those dates on there was Chicago, Talia Hall. And I was like, geez, if I could figure out a way to get him
some pizza.
A vegan pizza.
A vegan pizza?
A vegan pizza. That would be incredible. You know, grew up and to this day a huge Curb Your Enthusiasm fan. So that would just be incredible.
We've been watching Seinfeld on Netflix, and the last episode we saw was when Kramer was he loved wearing his clothes straight out of the dryer.
Yeah. yeah.
And he eventually put it in the pizza oven when he tried ordering calzones.
Yeah. That's hilarious. Don't burn my shirt. Right. That's so funny. Yeah.
So then how did you get in? Did you get into Talia Hall?
Okay, so I just put a Facebook status out there. I was like, hey, does anybody have any connections whatsoever at Talia Hall? Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to see a show for free. I have tickets. You know, I'm going to the show either way. I would just love to bring pizza to the artist, or in this case, JB. And I got a lot of false leads, and then it looked like it wasn't going to happen. I dressed up to the show. You know, if you know JB Smoove, he's suited and booted, looking, 110% at all times. So I dressed up for this show, to be one with the crowd. And we're, I would say, a good 85% of the way to the venue in the car with my buddy Max. And I get a text from my buddy Tony Martin. And Tony's like, if you can get the pizza there, they'll get the pizza to JB. Just bring it to the security. I set the whole thing up. Bring it to security, and they'll get it to him. And at this point, we had passed Dobro. I'm like, turn around. I'm calling Dobros. I'm like, open up a can of tomato, because I know they put Parmesan cheese in their tomato sauce. I'm like, open up a can of tomatoes. Like, I need to put together so in the quickest way possible. Like, they didn't have any vegan cheese or anything there. Like, if I had known about this in advance, I probably would have reached out to Derek Tung from Polly G's, who's really one of the trailblazers in terms of both vegan and gluten-free options here in the city for pizzerias. I don't think anyone's doing either better than he is. And I probably would have gotten a bag of some sort of vegan cheese or meat substitute or whatever. Didn't do that, so I was like, no meat, no cheese. We're going veggie and sauce heavy on this pizza, and I'm just gonna pack as much flavor into it as possible. And I made the pizza. It's a Dobros box. I'm like, buy Professor Pizza. It just so bootleg.
Wouldn't you flip the box upside down, or?
I think I might have.
Oh, okay.
And I think I might have box might have been inside out. I'm writing in Sharpie on it. I'm meat and dairy free, but packed with flavor. Just being so cheesy about it, so ridiculous, so extra. But I'm showing up to the venue, and this is my first taste of showing up to a venue with pizza in my hand, which always catches people off guard. It's you can't bring outside food. What's this person doing? Hand it off to security, go into the show. I'm enjoying myself. He's gracious enough to do a meet and greet with everybody in there afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And so I get to meet him during that. I'm like, I don't know if you saw it or whatever. Brought some pizza for you. I hope you, indulge, try it out. He's like, I saw that. I appreciate that. I'm about to get into that right after this, whatever. And you don't know if somebody's putting on,
being nice.
Celebrity airs for you,
sure,
or if they're just being genuine with you. And I think in his defense, he's wildly famous. He's only gotten more famous since that interaction. You go to Vegas right now, you'll see his face everywhere because of the Caesar Sportsbook that he's and now he's the spokesman for White Claw Vodka's new vodka products, and it's just kind of crazy how much he's blown up. But you just don't know if they're they're treating you genuinely, or if they're going to indulge in this product or not, or if they're going to go to Alinea for a 20-course meal after this. They're going to save themselves for that. Any of that's possible, right? So I'm leaving the venue, and we're not even home yet, and I'm getting DMs from JB Smoove on Instagram of like the pizza box empty and like delicious and whatever. And that very next day he posted, he thanked the venue and he thanked me and tagged me, and I was just like, oh my
Here we go.
God. What has happened? What has happened to my life, right? Surely this is the only time this is ever gonna happen, right? And so I stayed in touch with him, and I was just like, hey man, like this is like the smallest taste of what I can do for you. If I could ever, bring pizza to the set or do something for you at your home, like I'll fly myself out. Like I'll do whatever. And we stayed in touch, and since then I've stayed at his house twice. I've done a huge party there. He's taken me to incredible events that like I've met more incredible people at, and just created like lifelong memories of. And I consider them, genuine friends and supporters of the overall Professor Pizza Tony Scardino mission.
To me, is like better than the business that comes from it.
Entirely.
The
so
relationships,
they're
right?
genuine friends now, and it's like to be able to say that literally of anybody, but also somebody that would otherwise be kind of pretty untouchable is pretty incredible. And what it's done is it's opened me up to what an incredible community stand-up comedy is. And so as you've seen, I've been able to do it for a lot more stand-ups, and been in the credits of Sam Rill's Netflix special. I think I might have,
You're on like
a tiny
Bert's
little cameo.
Story, I think.
Bert's Story, shouting me out to Joe Rogan, like just kind of like crazy
Joe
stuff.
comes to Chicago pretty often. So
Say again?
Joe comes to Chicago pretty often.
Yeah. I'm talking with Tony Hinchcliffe's people right now.
Nice.
So
Tony's funny as hell.
yeah, it's amazing to see what he's done with Kill Tony and that whole platform. But it's just been very cool to see one opportunity kind of lend itself to the next, and so on and so forth. So excited to be doing it. I have less time now than ever with the rooftop, and so I'm trying to sway people to come to the rooftop where I can give them the ultimate experience. But
is there a part of you where you're eventually going to train a team to be at the rooftop and you can kind of automate it?
So I'm lucky to, there's so many people right now, at least in my eyes, so many people, but there's a handful of people in reality that make up Professor Pizza that I really could not do it without. There are people that are at the pizza right now that are working, prepping, right, that are there on both my days off, prepping when I'm with my kids. So, big shout out to Mike Sundstrom, aka the Peacemaker, to Ellis Lee, to Katia Plaza, to Israel Perez, to my cousin Mike Mantis, to our accountant Sophia Chichimo, to Grant Johnson, our investing partner, to Atomic Group, to my parents, so on and so forth, and my countless friends, Ray Ginsberg that helps me at so many mobile events that I do, to the platform that Humboldt Jungle, which is an incredible DIY comedy show that happens at least monthly, if not more often. That those guys have given me a platform to sell slices and get my name out there. There's a whole ecosystem of people that, whether they're directly on a payroll or not, have all been responsible for getting me to the place I'm at right now and where I'm hoping to go.
Takes a village.
So, yeah.
I recently had a conversation with Mike Satinover, Ramen Lord, who's opening up his first brick and mortar in Logan. And cultural appropriation came up in the conversation, not in our conversation, but from listeners of like, they're wrestling with the idea of a non-Japanese person making good ramen or making money off of good ramen.
Yeah.
Right. And then Derek actually chimed in and said like, food is global.
Yeah.
And
totally.
That's what he was seeking when he found Paulie G. It's just like someone who'd be open to the idea of someone who's not Italian learning to make pizza. So is that a similar take? There's similar belief that you have?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're bringing this up too, because in that list of names I left out one, which is Sarah Magale, and Sarah is from Tuscany, and she helps inform a lot of what we do in the kitchen. But it's like also incredible to watch her like eat a slice of our Humboldt pie, which has pepperoni and ranch and vodka sauce and pineapple and pickled jalapeno on it, and she loves it, right? And it just goes to show you that like she could make us the most regional Italian staff meal, as she often does for us, and it's like mind-blowingly delicious. Or she can, chow down on a slice of Humboldt pie, which breaks every Italian-based pizza rule in the book, right? So I always remind people, and I hope to change this in, if not the coming months, coming years, I've never been to Italy. I hope that changes soon. I speak very little of the language. I come from an Italian-American background that I say, and I might have even said this in the first podcast, is more American-Italian than Italian-American. And so I didn't have a lot of people to learn the language from, learn the
before the first
from.
episode 3 years ago. You're like, yeah, I just came from Carms.
From what?
Carms. Like, I got a hot dog from Carms. Yeah. I love Little Italy.
Yeah. And I do. It's like indirectly a part of my personality is, maybe like one of the last, rungs on the ladder, if you will, of that immigration story. But pizza's become a very international thing at this point. Some of the best people in the world that are producing some of the best pizzas in the world are from places all over the globe that are not necessarily Italy, right? Yeah. And then we have what's happened here in America with all of our different regional styles.
Even in Chicago.
Even here in Chicago, right? Everyone's like, isn't it hard to sell New York style pizza in Chicago? Well, it's a pretty passé thing, because like we have New York, we have Chicago, we have Detroit, Neapolitan, Roman. We have different variations of Roman, right? We've got what Bonci does. We've got, pinzerias that are popping up.
What are those?
Pinza is something that's a little bit more keto in nature. It's a new formulation where they're using standard pizza flour, they're using some wheat flour, and sometimes they're using soy and rice flour in it, and they're extending the pizza dough or opening the pizza dough in rice flour, so it creates something that is more digestible than traditional pizza. It's lighter to digest or to consume than traditional pizza, but still has incredible taste, aroma, texture, in the way that you would expect a traditional pizza to have, right? So, yeah, I think Derek's, right on the money. I think food is very international, and I think, people enjoy all different varieties of food. If you're going to say only Italian people should be making Italian food, then you're probably also saying that only Italian people should eat Italian food. And it's like,
I think
what are the economics behind that alone?
I think the gripe is making money off of someone's.
Everybody loves it, right?
Making money off of someone's culture. I think.
Sure,
that's the gripe.
Fair enough.
And so, like, where does authenticity, like authenticness, come from? Is it like who makes it, or is it the actual thing? Because who was it? Someone's.
I think it's just about having respect for
Dustin,
where it comes from, right?
Oh, mad respect. And like Mike has created a free ebook on all things ramen, so he's not gatekeeping anything. Like if you wanted to do this, you could do this.
Totally.
Dustin, the director of Ethan Lim's documentary, Cambodian Futures, shared like, what if you had a mom and pop Chinese restaurant that slings like orange chicken, General Tso's chicken, and then next door you have this 3-star Michelin restaurant, Chinese restaurant, but it's made by, let's say, a group of white individuals that spent some time in China and learned about the cuisine and then brought it back and tried elevating it.
Yeah.
What is more authentic at that point, right?
Right. I think there's room for both, right? And I think they're both going to have different artistic agendas in terms of what type of food they're trying to serve. But I think both of them are legitimate, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then I've got people like my dear friend Henry Kai of Three Little Pigs, who has some intensely traditional Cantonese recipes, but then also, you know, we'll take those recipes and almost make a Cantonese poutine out of them and serve them on top of French fries, right?
Yeah.
You know, he took the basis for his father's original salt and pepper fried chicken, and he's doing that in a variety of different formats, right? He has the individual pieces. He's got the fried chicken sandwiches. He's now making orange chicken sandwiches. He's now taking his char siu sauce, which is incredible, on his pork, and also slathering his chicken in that. So he's doing all sorts of things that, you know, is he a traditional Chinese person? Yeah, of course. He's a first-generation immigrant who spent a lot of his life going back to Canton and China and visiting his grandmother and cooking with his father and so on and so forth. But, like, he's also intensely American, you know, and his food is at the intersection of both of those realities.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see that more and more in cuisine, is respecting where you came from as much as respecting where you are.
Yeah.
And blending those together in the most artful and respectful way possible, right?
Beautiful, yeah.
And that's where my Humboldt pie came from. My Humboldt pie came from Humboldt Park.
Yeah.
Where people are putting ranch on their pizza. People are putting pickled jalapenos and pineapple on their pizza. And how can we do that in a way that still puts flavor first and it's still indicative of a pizza eating experience, but also is like, hey, we're here in America. We're here in Humboldt Park. Like, let's enjoy the flavors that people are enjoying in this area as well, you know? But also try and put a sfincione on the menu, which is a classic Sicilian pizza with breadcrumbs and anchovies and onions and things of that nature.
Oh, I love that.
So, you know, I don't try and pick either or. I try and celebrate both.
It can be both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just reminds me that, like, we're not entitled to anything. So when you say, like, you know, people that are making money off cultural appropriation, it's just like, you're not entitled to any of that. Like, if you want to go do that, go do it.
Sure.
You know? Yeah. And appreciate your perspective on that.
Absolutely.
So going to now the rooftop, what can someone come to expect when they try to seek out your pizza there?
I mean, it's a party up there, man. It's certainly on the weekends, Fridays and Saturdays. There's a live DJ up there.
Cool.
It's you know, very summertime, vibey, house music type feel to the entertainment aspect up there. There's a handful of cabanas up there that are first come, first serve, but also can be rented out for small or large buyouts. It's a full bar there, courtesy of Tetto, with some pretty interesting cocktails. And then, you know, it's all anchored by our pizza, right? But this is our first opportunity as well to expand just beyond pizza, and we're doing spinach artichoke dip that I'm really proud of. We're doing meatballs that I'm really proud of. We're doing collaborations with Pretty Cool Ice Cream and Sicilian Bakery, right? So we've got kind of like the basis to our cannoli is Sicilian Bakery's shell and filling, but we put our own Luxardo cherries and fresh chopped pistachios on the end and make it really our own experience. Pretty Cool Ice Cream, we selected a handful of different bars and pops from them that we think complement those rooftop vibes really nicely, but also we're doing a co-branded tiramisu bar with them that is only available on our rooftop now. It's something that started in their shop and they retired the flavor, and when we reached out to them, they said this would be a perfect thing to bring back just for Professor Pizza, right?
Yeah.
So we're excited to be making those collaborations. You know, we're getting different bread products from D'Amato's right now. We're going to be getting different bread products from Public and Quality Bread soon. So just in an effort to be working with the most exciting brands here in Chicago.
Yeah.
This is a platform for us to do that now. We're really excited about our charcuterie options up there, and
nice.
the fact that we're offering Nduja by Tempesta Market. So it's a showcase of a lot of the things I love.
Yeah.
And it's a showcase of a variety of the different styles that we do, and the first opportunity to have them really fresh out of the oven straight to your table. So I'm really excited to be up there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a private event inquiry actually about
Sure,
possibly
we can get into
at Tetto. I just remembered what I wanted to talk about with the Ghost Kitchen is like there was a lot of like pushback on Ghost Kitchens when they first came out.
Yes.
By people that had brick and mortars. But
well, it's kind of like people that are telling their employees to go back to the office and work in the office. It's like, wait a minute, we spent all this money on this real estate, and you're going to tell me you're not going to use it? So it's really that. It's really big business saying like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be renting real estate out here, and you're consolidating this all into one building and still ideally making a profit off of it, but we're not getting our share from it. So that's the initial pushback, and then big business got behind Ghost Kitchens, and we're like, well, I guess that's real estate too, and maybe it's more industrial real estate than commercial real estate, but we can still make a bunch of money off of that. And they started overbuilding these Ghost Kitchens. And now we're, certainly like COVID's real. My uncle actually just got it for the first time, and I think he's on the mend from it right now. But like, we are largely living in a post-COVID world, and people are back to appreciating what they love most, which is like traditional restaurant experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I think the facility that we were in suffered from a little bit of that, where they were built in the height of the pandemic and they were really overbuilt.
Oh.
And they never had the level of occupancy in that building that they needed to make it a viable business. And so they closed it down.
Oh,
and shit. So, we spent 4 months after leaving there looking for our next opportunity and being largely inactive as a brand. And we're finally able to settle upon the rooftop at 406 North Sangamon, where we are now, and we're very lucky for it. But
it does lower the cost, like the barrier to entry, though, into the hospitality space.
So that's the narrative that they sell to you.
It's
right?
a myth.
I mean, when we were leaving there, for a fraction of the space we have now, we were paying $6,500 a month in rent, right? And it's. I'm not saying that there aren't good deals out there to be had, but it's largely a gotcha scenario, right? It's like, for this amount of money, you can have this, and we think this is enough for about 85% of our customers. Well, you get into that space and you realize that the walk-in closet that they sold you is not enough to run your brand. And so now you're renting dry storage space. And you want to start off by renting the smallest amount of dry storage space you can. Well, as your brand expands, so do your needs, and so do your footprint. So does your footprint, right? So now you're renting more dry storage, and now you're not just utilizing the reach-in refrigerators and freezers in your unit, but you're renting cold storage space from them. And now you need a little bit more cold storage space. So you're renting not just this one Metro rack, but you're renting 2 Metro racks, because in that world, it's not just by the square foot, it's by the Metro rack. Sometimes it's by the shelf on the Metro rack, right? So it became expensive quickly.
Wow, I had no idea.
Quickly.
Hello?
Got a drop-in guest here, maybe.
Okay. So two friends come to mind. The people behind Novel Pizza.
Okay.
So Ryan, Enrique, and then Francis from Side Practice Coffee. They're running this pizza shop out of Matters of the Heart, like it's a clothing line store in Lincoln Park.
Oh, wow.
And I think they're working on their first brick and mortar.
Very cool. You're teaching me something I don't know about. I don't know these guys.
They started as Alico. But so Francis has a coffee shop that started in the pandemic at Foster and Damon.
Okay.
No experience with coffee, and he's killing it. He's created quite the community.
Very cool.
And it's called used to be called Side Project, and then they were hit with a cease and desist letter from a brewery called Side Project.
Okay.
Now it's Side Practice.
Okay.
The whole point is he puts on other people's side practices at the coffee shop and puts other people on.
Oh, very cool.
Right. And I think they're cousins. He and Ryan are cousins. And then Enrique, they've been running a pizza shop. They've been popping up here and there.
Yeah.
And then now they're currently at Matters of the Heart, which is a boutique clothing line. And last time I was there, I saw like Joe Freshgoods there.
Oh, badass.
And
somebody I'm still trying to get in with, Joe. Would love to make you pizza.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you think about where some of these people that you want to interact with, who they interact with.
Yeah.
And that, right? It's just like
That's how it happens.
Who's the gatekeeper?
Yeah.
But if they were sitting right here, what advice would you have for them as far as like growing and starting?
I mean, so they're already doing it, right?
Yeah.
They're like,
yeah.
It's reminiscent of, kind of the beginnings of my story, which is look for any outlet possible to do the most humble version of what you're ultimately trying to do. I think most people make the mistake of saying like, well, I need this long of a hood and this big of a range and this big of a walk-in and this large of a dining room and need this custom equipment and so on and so forth. And like, I'm lucky now to have a lot more bells and whistles and toys to kind of expand our business with than ever before. There's still a bunch more on my wish list that I don't have. But when I started this, I started out of my garden apartment with, the first week the first couple weeks I didn't even have the commercial oven there, right? So I was doing this out of my apartment oven with a baking steel. I wanted to make pizza, but that wasn't a reality for me yet, so I made focaccia. I eventually needed more refrigeration space, so I went to Home Depot and got like a mid-sized mini fridge, like a dorm fridge. And then I went to Facebook Marketplace and got another like full size but like residential fridge.
Oh wow.
For like $80 plus the cost of the U-Haul and my friend helping me lug it and almost like paralyzing the two of us, like trying to get this into my garden apartment. And like figuring out how to, which is like, if it's a double door, you got to open the doors and like get like kind of like turn it into is wild. But, start immediately. Don't start once you have everything you need or once you feel like you have everything you need, because you'll never have everything you need, right? So that's one. Two, don't wait. Like now we do it a little bit differently with our social media. Now it really is a lot more curated than it used to be and a lot more deliberate than it used to be, which I think is important to eventually transition into. But when you're beginning, document everything. Don't wait to a lot of times I know for me, I was just like, oh, it's got to be so polished before I put it up there. And it's that old adage, perfection is the enemy of progress, right? And the reality is like, I have so many people that support me now because they saw what I was doing when I didn't have anything. If they had just saw me pop up and say, hey, I'm Professor Pizza and we have some of the best pizza in the city and we're on this rooftop, and it's like, where's the story in that? Where's the struggle in that? Where's the journey in that? People want to see all the trials and tribulations you had to go through to get to where you are now. Because if they can see that and they can see how humbled you are by the journey, they're that much more likely to sign on to be a fan of yours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they've bought in.
Get at it right
Yeah.
away in the most humble version you can possibly produce, and start documenting it and posting it right away, and support other people's businesses too.
Yeah.
You know, I was a big supporter in the early days, to this day, a Pretty Cool ice cream, right? Now they're way bigger than me, and I went up to Dana Cree just with an email, really, and I was just like, I've been following your career since before you opened this place. I know this is your busiest season of the year. I know, you know, you work with much bigger brands than us, but like, this would be a dream to work with you. And when we finally met in person, she was like, yes, this is the busiest season. We are saying no to everybody, but she had such a sweet email. We decided we were going to do this collaboration with you. And I think, like, supporting your peers or people that, like, maybe aren't your peers, maybe they're a step ahead of you, but still being like, look, this is a win for Chicago or for my particular city or my background. That feeds everybody, right?
Love it.
That's like why, like, you know, I haven't met this Joe Freshgoods guy yet, but like, he's a mythic character in our city, right?
Yeah.
And what he's been able to do with brands like, you know, let's think, JB Graziano's, that have been around for nearly 100 years, if not longer. I don't know all the intricacies of their story, but precisely a long fucking time. Or New Balance or what have you, like, is incredible, right? And it's like, I don't own that company. I haven't met that guy, but every time he wins, I feel like we all win. And, you know, I try and share whatever successes Professor Pizza has with everybody that cheers me on and everybody that makes this happen. You know, obviously, you're interviewing me today. You're not interviewing Mike or Sarah or Katya or Izzy or what have you.
I appreciate you mentioning
them.
Though.
Wouldn't be here without them.
Yeah.
So I like to say, like, a win for me is a win for them, and a win for them is a win for me. But yeah, I think all of that's integral to having a small business thrive.
What's been your process as far as helping your team buy in to the process and buy into the love of the process? Is it giving
luckily,
not ownership per se, but like giving freedom?
And in some
and
cases, it is ownership.
Sure.
Right. Some of these people have equity in my business.
Yeah.
Because it's their business now too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses say that. And granted, like, we're still in so much debt that no one's seeing a dime of this equity yet, including myself, including our investing partner. So we're not there yet, but we're already structuring the business in a way where it's like, it's not just me that wins. It's not just our equity partner, Grant, that wins. Like, we all get to win from this, you know? And maybe some people are paid back their debt first, sort of thing, but we all get to win, and we all get to win at relatively the same time.
Nice.
Right? So that's part of it. I try and hire people to the best of my ability that, like, I would selfishly like this to be their career, not just their job, right? And I try and hire them in a career-focused format and use that sort of verbiage, like, early and often. I try and celebrate their talents. We try and invest in their weaknesses too, though.
How so?
By carving out time when we have it to train. You know, I think it's easy to just be like, you're good at that, you're not, so you're going to do this over here. But, like, you know, maybe you can't do something right now, but more so than focusing on, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's more the verbiage of it. And I saw this from Rick Rubin, who I'm a huge fan of, you know, the earliest Def Jam guy, right? Or hip hop music figure. Stop saying, I can't do this, and start saying, I haven't done it yet. There's so much in the pizzeria, whether it's pizza related or, you know, boss or ownership related, that, you know, I haven't done yet, but I will one day, or that I hadn't done yet, but I do all the time now, right?
Yeah.
So it's about just changing your mentality. That's how I'm trying to look at this goal of stand-up comedy. I haven't done it yet. I've I've ingratiated myself into the community. I'm an active member in my own facet within that community, but I have not yet gotten onto that stage and, made myself vulnerable for 60 seconds to 5 minutes. So having that mentality, I think also, and this is a balance I'm trying to find all the time as a boss, it's like, they say, you should check your home life at the door, and once you're at work, you're at work. I think you should strive for that, but at the same time, like, people are people, and there's a lot of outside factors that are going to factor or play a role into what kind of employee they're in the workplace. And some of that stuff is like well beyond their control. And I try and be the boss that you can come to with those problems and maybe give you some wisdom or try and find you some wisdom if I can't directly, bestow it upon you, so that we can work through these things and make one another the best people, the best employees, best coworkers, best boss-employee relationship we can possibly strive for. I try and foster an environment and opportunity for that to take place. But, like, also, it doesn't always work out with everybody.
Sure.
And, like, if they don't genuinely have the passion for it, and if they're not willing to do the jobs that aren't glamorous, it genuinely might not work out, right? And I guess, like, that last thing I would say is I have made it a point to, and it's not like, it's not a rule. I'm not going to make anybody do it, but I have encouraged everybody on the team to have their own Instagram and to take their own photos and to post their own photos and to build their own presence as
brand,
somebody in this industry, that can either live within that Professor Pizza universe or go off on their own and do their own thing totally independent from us. And
your ability to let go and build others up.
Yeah, I wish somebody would have told me that when I was making $9 an hour as a line cook in a fine dining restaurant, and not to say that, like, those people weren't looking out for my best interests. Those people weren't doing it for themselves, let alone telling me to do it for me. And the landscape and social media has matured so much since then. So I think it's a lot more obvious now too that you can be doing that, especially with, like, the advent of things like TikTok, but and reels and stories and so on and so forth. But I think. And this podcast is a perfect example of it, or you having this EMT school. It's just like empowering other people to be their own boss and to be their own brand, and to do so early and often is, I think, super integral to my success and the success of the people that are currently a part of this ecosystem.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
For you. Is there a segment or a niche that you're trying to tap into, or if you were to manifest a collaboration right now, what would you put out there?
So we talked a little bit about merch, and I don't even like that term because, it's short for merchandise, right? And to me, when I think of merchandise, I think of like one more gotcha sale that they can throw on you after you've already spent the money on, in my case, the meal, or in, the concert or the comedy show. And it's just like too often an afterthought. And I think really what we're trying to produce is a lifestyle brand and something that is anchored by pizza, and that doesn't stray so far away from that it's like you couldn't see it coming from Professor Pizza, but is also just something that, like, even if you'd never had my pizza before or didn't know that this came from a pizza-centric brand, you'd be like, oh, I would wear that. Yeah. I would buy that.
Has that been tough?
I would own that. Has that what?
Been tough?
It has been tough because, there's a reason why most merch is an afterthought, because to produce it quickly, efficiently, on a large scale, in a variety of different sizes, so on and so forth, usually the first corner you cut is in quality, right? So it's been difficult.
Yeah.
And
Comfort colors or Gildan?
right, exactly. Totally. So now we're looking at things like, how many ounces is this T-shirt? What kind of tag does it have on it?
Maybe limited runs, right?
Yeah, limited runs, pre-sales.
Yeah.
All things like that we're looking into to, offer a product that doesn't pale in comparison to what we're known for, but is otherwise a reflection of what we're known for already. So, there's brands like System Seltzers, which is a friend of mine and somebody who I think would be a perfect podcast guest, Anthony Scardino, that we're working on lifestyle items
Call it swag.
with,
I don't know. Yeah.
with, right? He's got a very long-standing relationship with the guys at Juggernaut, and so we're talking with them about doing something cool in terms of swag. But we're looking at all different options and all different items. But I think that's kind of central at what we want to get into next. And also, above and beyond that, we want to expand the frozen line in a real way.
Like into wholesale, like into grocery stores and stuff?
Grocery stores, online, bring it back to the comedy world and the podcast world, and potentially
like ship it
be
across
a sponsor of some of these podcasts and allow our brand to get out there more and say, hey, you can get a Professor Pizza shipped to you anywhere in the country, right? So we're not there yet. You can't even get one beyond Maplewood right now, but I don't do a lot of medium-sized dreams, I do gigantic, outlandish dreams, and then I try and humble myself from there and say, okay, what's really the first step in this dream? How can you realize it in the most humble way possible? Which is really where, it's like you want a pizzeria, but you have a garden apartment, Where do you start? So that's where we are with the frozen
Was
thing.
there any step in the journey where you felt like you skipped a few steps?
Yeah, and I had a bunch of people that were happy to tell me that I skipped a few steps and be like, you're super illegitimate for doing that too. And that's another thing, I think I said this maybe in the first podcast too, along those same lines. I remember just being a line cook and being like, it wasn't even that I was like, oh, one day I'm going to be the head chef, because I didn't even so much care about that. It was just like, geez, one day I hope to not be totally financially destitute. I am lucky to have had somewhat of a cushion from my father in those days, and there would be so many months where I couldn't even pay my rent, and he would help me, or I was working maybe at PQM in the West Loop when it was still the tail end of the meatpacking district, and trying to find parking spaces, and realizing that when you were parking your car somewhere along the line, your tire caught a nail from them breaking down a pallet in the middle of the street, and you didn't even really realize that until the end of your workday when you come back to your car and you see your tires flat, and sure enough there's a nail in it, and now you got to get your car towed and your tires changed and everything else like that. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm making $13 an hour here, so it's I don't even know where that all came from. I think I was just venting for a second.
Financially destitute, right?
Yeah, I think it's
big dreams.
It's been a journey, and at that point, my dream was just how can I work for myself and make any amount of money that I'm supporting myself with. And I have realized that dream. I am working for myself, and granted, it's still in the debt phase of the business, but it's my debt. It's my debt and my partner's debt, and we're on the path to get out of it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah. I feel like that was like, I'm like, I don't remember the question. I don't know if I answered it.
I think the original question was like skipping steps,
yeah.
right? But that's all I had for you, Tony. And anything else you want to put out there? Like, did we not cover anything? Anything that's been on your mind?
You know, visit us on the rooftop.
Yes.
If you've ever had our pizza before, here's your first opportunity. Have it fresh out of the oven. If you've never had my pizza before, here's the best opportunity to try my pizza in the way that it was really intended to be. I forget the exact dates. I want to say it's like the 19th and 20th, or the 20th and 21st, something like that, of August. I will be at the Salt Shed with Infatuation for their first ever Chicago rendition of their Eats Con, which they've done in New York and LA, and I think even a variety of other cities. But this is going to be, I think, the biggest food festival in the city, maybe bigger than the Taste of Chicago in some respects. You know, you couldn't just sign up for it. We were humble enough to be one of the restaurants they reached out to be a part of it. The rapper Sweetie's going to be there for whatever that's worth, which I think it's worth quite a bit, actually. Sweetie, I'd love to make you pizza. I think it's going to be an incredible event, and I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, Professor Pizza on Instagram, give us a follow. That's kind of still, in many ways, the front door to our business, and where you can stay up to date as possible with everything that we've got coming out that's new and exciting.
Awesome.
So, yeah, man.
Tony, thank you for the time.
I'm tiny. I'm a bite-sized king, short king.
Thank you for the time.
Absolutely. Likewise, brother.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro.